Hello, folks. There it is. Hurricane Lee was category 5. I think it's going back and forth between 5 and 4. But, I've been telling you folks for a long time, I am category 5 and I'm coming through. That's what I've been saying for years now. That's been my slogan, man. Hurricane Lee, category 5. There's only been 40 category 5 storms in the Atlantic since the recording began in 1924, and we've just added Hurricane Lee to the list. It's yet to be known what kind of damage this thing will do. It obviously will not be nothing, but it very well could be one of the largest storms to ever hit the eastern seaboard if it keeps up like this, if it keeps going in the way it is. But yeah, Hurricane Lee. I had to grease a few palms over at the meteorological center to get that named Lee. But, I thought it was worth it. As long as we're in a climate crisis and I seem to be the only one talking about it, why not name a fucking Hurricane Lee? That's what I've said. That's what I was saying to them. Okay, so actually I'm not going to spend any more time on that story. But I have a lot of big stories for you. I have a lot of big videos for you, important videos that I'm going to be showing you as well, including one by RFK Jr. talking about how the primaries are rigged. Another video coming from EU Parliament and new presidential candidates running for office that are also pretty awesome. Sorry, I got something fucking shit. You always have those problems, every time you think you got everything ironed out, I got all my stories ready to go. Here it is. There's just like a hair on my neck or some shit like that. Okay. But we're going to start off with this insane indictment down in Georgia. No, not the one against Donald Trump. This is the one against, the activists there, Cobb City, and I want to actually read you some of the passages from this insanity. Oh, and I should take a moment to say I'm sorry, Eleanor Goldfield is not here. She had an event she had to go to, but she will be back next week. Have no fear. She has not had enough of you all and said I'm out. No, she'll be back. Well, she did say I'm out for this week, but she'll be back next week. Anyway, let's start off with these insane indictments that have even the mainstream media sees what insanity this is. Of course, I don't need to remind you guys what Cop City is, but I will anyway. It's this massive project, $100 million, I believe, project, plowing over the last remaining urban forest in Atlanta to build a giant training center to teach our police and the Georgia police to be more militaristic, more brutal. And protesters have been fighting against this thing for a while now. And the police have responded by arresting many of them, declaring them terrorists, and assassinating one of them, shooting him dozens of times, despite the fact he had his hands up. So that's how they've responded. And you might think, well, that sounds wrong. I think those police who have already assassinated an unarmed environmental protester, I feel like those police should be prosecuted. That's what you may think in your rational adult brain. But what Georgia has done is said, no, those police shouldn't be prosecuted. In fact, we should indict all of the other innocent protesters. Innocent in the sense that they're doing the right thing. They're in the right. But so you got to hear, though, the wording of some of this insanity. Like I said, it's even the mainstream media is saying this indictment prosecutes dissent, but it's even more than just dissent. So let me get to, I'm just going to read to you. These are actual screenshots of the indictment. And something I should lead with before I start reading these is that they're indicting, I think, 60-something protesters, dozens of them, and in a RICO case, saying that it's racketeering. It's a collaborative effort to create a entity, a group, an organization to create fraud or violence. It's like working together to create fraud or violence. And many people are, comparing it to the fact that also in Georgia, Trump has also been indicted, also under the RICO statute. Now, I think comparing the two is just kind of dumb because they're very different things. One, you can argue that, oh, Trump had all the right in the world to, if you actually look at what he legitimately did, and I don't mean what he's accused of doing, what he legitimately did, what they have recordings of and stuff like that. It's like him, saying, let's get a fake group of electors that we'll say are the real ones. And when they go to vote in Congress for the president, we can say, here are our electors. And we can just say those are the real ones, even when they're fake. And that way I can be made president again. Now, that's what he did. You can argue about whether you think that should be a big crime or not a crime, whether anybody should be able to create their own list of electors and just say, these are them. Doesn't matter what your state voted for. Go ahead, have that argument. But comparing these two is just not logical. One of them is a group of protesters who are fighting against the fascist state. The other is a fucking racist corporate numbskull. So is Joe Biden, but that's not the one we're talking about at the moment. The other one is a racist corporate, narcissistic, megalomaniacal sexual assaulter who was trying to keep himself president. Now, I think the better argument to make, if you actually want to say that indictment against Trump is stupid, is the fact that he and all of our presidents should be in prison for other things, such as war crimes, such as bombing children, such as with Biden and Trump, sexual assault. But whatever. And I've had that discussion many times on this live stream. I haven't avoided that discussion in any way. But acting like that RICO case and the one where you have fucking unarmed protesters sitting in the woods, in this case, some of them handing out pamphlets is what they were arrested for. Very different goddamn things. And if you can't see that, then I don't know. Go visit a doctor, please, quickly. Okay, so, but here's what they're accusing them. So in order to get them under RICO, they have to say that they had a joint venture, they had joint beliefs, and those beliefs were to, either defraud or commit mass violence, and it's got to rope them all in, right? Whereas if they were just prosecuting one person for lighting a piece of construction equipment on fire, which apparently a couple of people did, then you could prosecute them for that. And if it were up to me, they'd get, a month max. They'd get community service. All right. They harmed a construction equipment. That's not violence. And that's another discussion, which I've had many times on here. When you want to define violence, well, is violence the corporate state when they assassinate a protester? Is violence when banks steal your house from you, even though they have defrauded you out of it? Is that not violence? They basically, to you personally, they basically burned down your house. They made it not available to you. They stole it from you. They boarded it up, kicked you out. How is that not violence? So we have this dumb dichotomy of what is viewed as violence in this system. No, violence, and the ruling elite will tell you, violence can only be done by those below us. We, the rich, we can't do violence. What we do is all legal, because guess what? The ruling elite crafted the laws, and so they crafted laws that said what the violence they do is not violence, it's legal. Funny how that works. Isn't it a great system how that works? So they've got to show that these people all work together. So here in the indictment is some of the stuff they say in order to try and claim that these people work together and are indictable under RICO racketeering charges. Here's a quote from the indictment. In addition to handing out documents, what? No, they fucking didn't. They handed out documents? Oh my God. You know what? I'm out. I was going to defend them, but now that I've heard they've handed out documents, I can't defend that. That is indefensible. They handed out. No one told me they handed out documents. I never would have joined this team if I knew they handed out documents. Literally, this is what they're fucking indicting them for. Handing out flyers is one of the things. In addition to handing out documents, individuals who joined Defend the Atlanta Forest, so that's the group many of them were calling themselves, are offered financial, personal, and emotional support to remain loyal to the movement. Now think about this, folks. No matter what the movement is, if someone joins a movement, maybe it's a bowling club, maybe it's a fucking movement for pro-choice, maybe it's a movement for defend housing, defend community gardens, whatever the fuck. If you join a little club and that little club likes you and they say, you know what, we've got lunch. We're going to cover lunch for you every day you come and help us out here. Well, that's providing personal, financial, and emotional support to remain loyal to the movement. Every day you come, help us defend the community garden or help us plant the tomatoes. Every day you come, we're giving you lunch. Oh, well, now that you've provided emotional, financial, and personal support for someone, that's racketeering. I mean, honestly, like you read through this and you're like, do they hear themselves? Do they hear what the fuck they're criminalizing? Providing emotional, he literally says emotional support. You provide emotional support to somebody, that's racketeering. You should be prosecuted. Then it continues. Indeed, the forest defenders, they had indeed there, like, oh, it's getting heavy. The forest defenders are provided with monetary, emotional, they repeat it, and personal support during their occupation of the forest. They're living in the forest. So what kind of financial, monetary support do you think they're offered? I bet it's pizza. I bet it's, hey, do you need a water? Here's a bottle of water. I bet it's not, here's a giant sack of money for living in the forest. Here you go. Here's $10,000 in unmarked bills. No, it's called they got DoorDash to deliver Chinese food into the woods or some shit. Personal support. I mean, I don't like. Can you get any more fascist than this? Did you ever think you'd see a day? I know we live under a fascist government. Do you ever think you'd see a day where they're like, you provided personal support for some, you provided emotional support for somebody? That's racketeering. You're going to prison, okay, for 30 years. They're threatening them with, I think it's a lot of time. It's years and years in prison. During their occupation of the forest, during their incarceration, and after their incarceration, they provided emotional support during their incarceration. So when the police came in and arrested them for being in the forest, murdering one of them, God forbid someone offer emotional support to the victims of this fascist state. The discussions of support often refer to providing, quote, mutual aid and solidarity. Oh my God. What? How can that be? And now let's get into the definition of some of these terms. So they're accusing all of them of being anarchists, which, first of all, not all of them are anarchists or even claim to be anarchists. But beyond that, even for the ones who claim to be anarchists, and the indictment tries to get into this a little bit, but anarchy means different things to different people. For some people who are very ignorant of it, they think it means just setting shit on fire and running around with your cock out and, humping walls. That's generally if you don't understand what the term means. However, really the term just means no hierarchy, right? No rulers. Because oligarchy is, right? Archy is ruled by an elite business class. Monarchy is ruled by the royals. Any kind of these archies is ruled by such and such. A kleptarchy is ruled by thieves. And anarchy is, I don't have rulers. That's what it is. Now, you can decide that's not for you. You can decide, I like having rulers. But does that mean the guy who says, you know what, I don't like having rulers, I don't like having people over top of me, does that mean that guy should be put in prison? Or is that fascism where you lock people up because they have different views than you? because it sounded a lot like that one. It sounded a lot like that. So here's what the indictment says. Anarchy is a philosophy that is opposed to forms of authority or hierarchy. Beginnings of anarchist ideals date back centuries, though usage of the term anarchy did not exist until the 1800s. Over time, various philosophical forms of anarchy have emerged. Numerous anarchist philosophies exist. Oh, you mean these people could believe different things? So when you say, oh, they're anarchists, you're actually conflating and confusing and fabricating things to pretend that each one of these people believes the exact same thing. Rather, the notion of anarchy being grounded in an anti-authority mindset. Oh, God forbid someone should be anti-authority. Is that allowed in America? I don't think so. I think that's illegal if you're anti-authority. Anti-authority mindset primarily targets government because it views government as unnecessarily oppressive. Now, of course, they're using the term target to confuse people. Many anarchists target government by speaking to other people and saying that they think the government is not so good. It doesn't mean they're targeting them with Sidewinder missiles, but they're using that term to confuse you and make you think that this is far more nefarious than it is. Now, to continue from the indictment, instead of relying on a modicum of government structure, anarchy relies on human association instead of government to fulfill all human needs. Some of the major ideas that anarchists promote include collectivism, mutualism, mutual aid, and social solidarity. And these same ideas are frequently seen in the Defend the Atlanta Forest movement. Mutual aid, collectivism, social solidarity. Well, certainly all those things are illegal. How can that? We can't let social solidarity just go unfettered. What would become a society if everyone just has social solidarity? Collectivism is the idea that, to continue from the indictment, is the idea that the individual needs are subordinate to the good of the whole of society. Listen to that sentence and imagine a day when you could be indicted for believing it, when you could be charged with years in prison for believing that individual needs should be subordinate of the good of the whole of society. Furthermore, besides the fact that it's fucking vomitous to see them act like this should be illegal, besides that, let's not also forget that even in our current society, there's a lot of that going on, right? There's a lot of things that go on where you subordinate your individual needs to the whole of society. Every time you get in your goddamn car and you sit in traffic, why don't you just fucking plow up onto the shoulder, knock over mailboxes, and go where the fuck you want? Oh, because you're subordinating your personal need to get to your place really fast with the good of the whole of society. We all should wait in line with our cars until the next person goes, rather than fucking riding up on lawns and hitting pedestrians and running through red lights for the good of society. That's why we should behave that way. I'm not saying everyone does, but this idea of subordinating your individual needs for the good of society is actually done in a million ways throughout our society. Now, it's also not done in a million ways, so I don't want to act like we have it all the time. I mean, what they're doing right here with Cobb City by prosecuting fucking environmental activists, that is done for the good of a very rich ruling elite who are pushing this thing through, and a not very rich also ruling elite of the police forces, etc., who want this and therefore it be done. So I'm not saying collectivism or putting individual needs below the good of the whole society is done a lot in America. It's done some, though. You know, all the time we help each other out. Now, this is normally not done by the rich. It's normally not done by the tops of our society. It's done by you and me. It's done by us as individuals when we help people. Every time you see a homeless person, you give them $1. Every time you fucking help someone cross the street, or you know, an old woman's standing up in the subway car or the bus and you say, here's my seat. All of that is done. Every time you sit on the bus and wait for it to get to your stop rather than standing up and go and skip all the other stops and go to mine first. Every time you do that, you're actually subordinating your individual needs for the good of society. But of course, this indictment wants you to believe that this is some kind of nefarious thing that you should end up in jail if you believe that individual needs should be below the good of society. To continue from the indictment, that is, decisions are made based upon what is best for the group and not necessarily what's best for individuals. If I didn't know better, I would think this indictment is actually trying to sell us on this belief system, because this sounds pretty fucking good. Somewhere where a group of people cares about each other rather than just caring about their individual needs first and foremost. That sounds nice. No? Am I wrong? In embracing collectivism, individuals are expected to sacrifice personal income, personal liberty, and personal property if it benefits society as a whole. Now, again, we have a mix of this in our society right now. Most people pay taxes, and I know the fucking MMT and everything, but hypothetically, ostensibly, you pay taxes so that other people can have things. People can send their kids to public schools, and unfortunately, we can pay for the military and all of that garbage. Public schools aren't garbage, but military is garbage. So this is done in a million ways throughout our society. Now, they're trying to gut it everywhere they can. And maybe part of that is this current indictment criminalizing of helping each other out, of solidarity, of you and me working together for a better world. They are trying to criminalize all of that. That article that I showed you said it's criminalizing dissent. It's not just dissent. This indictment is criminalizing working with each other, being with each other, caring about fellow humans, and caring about the environment, which, guess what? We're a part of, okay? It's not us and the environment. It's not us versus the environment. It's not us trying to tame the environment. We are the fucking environment. We are part of it. It is part of us. And so every time we think we can just tame it and gut it and extract it, we're actually gutting ourselves and extracting ourselves. Side note, the decision of whether an individual should sacrifice their own individual needs is not made by the individual. Oh, that sounds a lot like taxes too, doesn't it? You don't get to decide what your taxes are. I mean, the rich do, but rather, in a true collectivist society, the society as a whole decides whether the individual must forfeit their own needs or property. Oh my God. This is so infuriating on so many levels. Like I said, first of all, the idea that it should be criminal to have solidarity with others and work with others and even give of some of your property to help others is just disgusting. It's the most immoral, fascist bullshit. But like I've just said, we have this for certain aspects of it within our society, at least when it's functioning properly. We have this, like the idea of forfeiting of some of your own needs or property. We hypothetically, we pay tax. You give some of your income to help this system. You give a certain amount so that you could have public schooling. Again, this is how it should work. Now I know they're gutting it and privatizing it and everything, but you give some so that we could have good public schools, and your kid goes to those public schools and he sits in a classroom of ideally 10 to 20 kids. But let's be honest, in the United States, 40 kids. Still, he sits in a classroom with other kids. And does that mean that the teaching is just for him? I just want my kid to have all of the teaching. No, the teaching is for the group. There's a teacher and there's a group of kids. And in a better world, it would only be a few of them, but still, that would be the idea, right? My kid has to wait his turn to solve the math problem while the other kid. Dude, this shit that they're criminalizing in this document is shit you should have learned to do in kindergarten. Wait in line for the water fountain, asshole. Then they go on to mutual aid, which they also have to attack and criminalize. Mutual aid is a term popularized by anarchists. Who cares who was popularized by? It means helping each other, assholes. By anarchists to describe individuals who exchange goods and services to assist other individuals in society without government intervention. What? You mean we could just, like, if someone needs an apple, give them an apple? I was pretty sure that's illegal. And clearly, now that I see this indictment, it is. Do not ever give someone who's hungry something they need. Do not ever help someone who needs help. You will be indicted for racketeering. I mean, these are the end days of the United States. Maybe I've said that before, but Jesus Christ, this feels like it. It's like we are going to prosecute those who help each other. We are going to, and they've been arresting people who give out food to the hungry, to the homeless for a while now. We are going to imprison good journalists who actually reveal the truth. We're going to deplatform and censor journalists who tell the truth, if you know any of those. We are going to imprison lawyers like Steven Donziger, who actually help fight against corporate rule, which is fascism. We are going to imprison lawyers who help fight against environmental destruction, like the lawyer that they actually arrested down at Cobb City and charged him as well. A legal observer was there and was arrested. And here you have a sentence in an indictment saying mutual aid, which I helped out with. I helped out with at the beginning of the pandemic. All right. At the beginning of the pandemic, you'll recall that the people couldn't even go out to get groceries. Some people, their jobs they were basically just instantly fired the moment the lockdowns began, and they had zero income and zero way to pay for anything. And so they started looking around for, where am I going to find dinner for me and my children? That's how severe it was in those opening days of the lockdown insanity, with our government fucking nowhere to be seen, and them just going, yeah, just everyone stay at home and just somehow have the money to buy your family dinner. And so during that time, guess what? Mutual aid got much larger and more aggressive. By aggressive, I mean handing out more food. I don't mean punching people. Mutual aid got much more prevalent because these people were like, where the fuck am I going to get food or money or anything? And so I was helping out there. And you know what it was? It was like a basement of a church that had donated its basement. It was like a basement where there was a bunch of groceries, some of which I donated, some of which other people donated, some of which people donated money. And we went to the grocery store and we bought the groceries with the money and brought it to the basement of the church that had been donated to use. And we filled those bags with groceries. And then we looked at a long list of people who said, we're desperate, we need groceries. And we brought them groceries. That's what mutual aid was. Now, how horrific does that sound? Does that sound like it belongs in a fucking indictment by the state of Georgia? Dude, just disgusting. Social solidarity is another term, continue from the indictment, that is embraced by anarchists. I love the idea that, anarchists are so embraced sitting on a couch sometimes. Like, I love the idea that anything that an anarchist says, and let's also be clear, plenty of the protesters at Stop Cop City know nothing about anarchy, have never done anything with anarchy. They just want to stop Cop City. So just the premise of this thing is insane. But even if it weren't, let's say everyone at Stop Cop City said, I am an anarchist. Well, as I said, that just means they believe in no rulers over their head, which they're allowed to believe that. Last I heard, I thought we were allowed to believe things like that in this country. But even if that were so, just because anarchists use a term, anarchists also wear shoes. The shoes used by anarchists, underwear, which has also been worn by anarchists. It's just stupidity. Social solidarity. Used by anarchists is a term that's tied closely to mutual aid and collectivism. Social solidarity is the idea that individuals can live together without government and can provide for each other. The notion of social solidarity relies heavily on the idea of human altruism. Again, dear God, human altruism. That is, individuals will voluntarily offer goods, services, and resources without anything compelling it. Basically, that sentence there says, these crazy activists believe you don't need a fascist police force to make things work. They believe you don't need economic force to push people into wage slavery. That's what they believe, and they're lunatics. Anarchists often shorten the term to social solidarity. Oh my God. And then they try and act like it all has to do with violence, which, of course, I've already talked about how define violence, please. So basically, when the cops come out and literally murder someone, they murdered someone. That's not violence. But when these folks, many of them sitting peacefully in a tree or in front of a tree, that's violence. When a couple of them, even if they succeeded in setting fire to construction, I think they tried and maybe it didn't actually burn, but whatever. Let's say they succeeded. Let's say they burned a tractor and no one will ever use that tractor again. When they burn a tractor, that's called violence. When cops murder people, that's not violence. No, that's just doing the good work of the state. That's just upholding freedom and liberty. Violence, so the indictment continues, part of anarchism in some anarchist beliefs. So again, this indictment is admitting that it's not all anarchist beliefs that even promote violence. So you're not actually saying that all of these protesters you've indicted, like 60 or whatever it is, you're not actually saying they're all violent. You're just saying, well, some anarchists say they like violence. Viewing their own violent acts as political violence, violent anarchists attempt to frame the government as violent oppressionists. I love how this indictment is like, they try and frame the government as violent. Meanwhile, they literally raided this camp with machine guns and murdered somebody. And this indictment is like, they act like the government's violent. What are we going to do, Lion-O? Indeed, the belief is that the government is engaging in a form of violence by denying individuals basic needs through capitalism. What? You mean economic force can be violence? Dude, this sounds like, this indictment sounds like a third grader learning how the world works as they're trying to defend like capitalist harm and fascist harm. They're sitting there going, like, writing a book report where they're like, these people claim that Nazis are violent. These people claim Nazis are not good people. It's unbelievable. But all right, I'm running out of time here, but I just wanted to bring you that part of the indictment to show that literally they're indicting people for social solidarity. They're indicting, they're prosecuting and trying to lock up human beings for handing out pamphlets that promote helping people. I mean, and this is next door to the state, Florida and Missouri, where the Uhuru movement, the African Socialist People's Party, has been arrested and indicted by the FBI. One of the reasons they said was for, quote, weaponized free speech. So you have the federal government indicting people for free speech. You have Georgia indicting people for handing out pamphlets. And could someone remind me or inform me on how this isn't fascism? Like, what exactly is this? You have the New York Times going after people basically claiming they should be prosecuted, for under Foreign Agent Registry Act violations or Espionage Act violations. You have the New York Times saying they should be prosecuted because they promote peace around the world and say there should be peace between the U.S. and China, for example. This is just every definition of fascism is being seen here. And of course, this also is connected. Fascism has to do with the connection with the corporate state. This is connected to the corporate state. Cobb City is heavily funded by corporate America. There are big backers like Bank of America and others. So we're seeing the intertwining, which I'm now going to coin the word entwinement. We are seeing the entwinement of these big banks with fascist police that are trying to make them more brutal, and they continue to fund and support their actions even as those cops go in and murder at least one unarmed activist, possibly more as this goes on. And part of this, many people say this won't stand up in court. Many people say this is unconstitutional. Not sure if you heard that. They say this will be ultimately thrown out. But for one thing, I don't believe anything until I see it, especially with our insane court system, with our court system that is bought and owned by the ruling class. I don't believe anything will get thrown out till it does. But beyond that, they say that oh, sorry, not they say, but they're hoping that even if this gets thrown out for one thing, it ties up all of these activists and legal issues. So any of these activists, the 60 or whatever number it is, they all need to devote their lives to fighting this. So that's one, including money, including they'd probably bankrupt all of them and possibly the people supporting them as well, just to fight this. But beyond that, it creates a chilling effect for anybody who wants to be a part of protest, who wants to stand up to police. And that's the goal. The goal is not just to maybe lock up these people. It is also just to make others feel, well, I shouldn't stand up because it's scary. So I shouldn't fight back. I shouldn't speak about these things because it's scary. And that's part of the goal of these of this fucking, I don't even know what to call it anymore. I mean, fascist is definitely one term, but this disgusting anti-human capitalist oligarchy, as we're ignoring all of this, as we're ignoring the largest problem, which is an existential problem of climate crisis, climate breakdown. Okay, I want to get to, that took longer than I thought because there was a lot to go through there. And when I'm angry, I talk more. But I guess I'm always angry. I don't know. No, I'm not. That's not actually true. You guys, I feel love when I see you guys, and I enjoy spending time with you, and you guys give me hope. All right, so next I want to get into something RFK Jr. has just realized. But the rest of this live stream is going to be at rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join me over there. It's completely free. RFK Jr. has realized that the primaries are rigged so that he can't win. And I'm going to get into the details of that. Join me over at rumble.com/Lee Camp. See you there right now. Also, if you feel like you got 38 cents or more out of this episode, then please become a member at leecamp.locals.com. That gets you tons of extra content, including my new ebook, Dangerous Ideas. And it is $6 a month. And you get all of that free content, extra content, everything, Q&As. All right. So just Rumble and Locals.